Hello guys, welcome. This is the second experiment. This is the second experiment for my project. This time I will be just editing a few tweaks of my lighting, but the main thing for this experiment will be to experiment with camera movements and camera angles in Unreal Engine, and so that is what we're going to do today. So, as you can see, from last time, I have created this quite horrifying, quite eerie environment. Obviously the weather's my doing, so it's very foggy, it's very dirty, it's hard to see, and it brings out the fear factor of the fear of the unknown. So that's what we did last episode. So now this episode we are focusing on camera movements, but before I do that, I'm going to do a little tweak with the lighting. So as you can see, I have adjusted the fog a little more to make it a bit more foggy, to increase it. So and I've raised the dirt. Or is it the dirt? It's the the dust. I've increased the dust a little bit just to make it a bit more, unknown. And the red lighting was added last time, so everything is top notch. So this is the outdoors. Now, when working with camera movements, I need to state a little thing, and that is that when working with camera movements and angles, the cameraman has to focus on something, whether that is an actor, an object, something in the shot. Now, obviously, there's nothing in the shot that we can focus on. However, I mean, there are some shots in this environment that we can focus on. For example, the lamps. We can do a very close up, close shot like that. However, you can obviously see the quality. You can still see the declining quality with the environment when it comes to the chandelier. But in terms of the actual camera movement, we can do a little slide. So that is a little slow slide like this. If we're starting up a shot, I'd say that's quite cinematic. Or we can do camera shoots inside, which I have planned. So I have added these lights, and hallway scenes are very famous in movies. So what I've done is I've added these lights in this hallway, and I have enabled the use of certain camera angles and camera movements for this hallway. For example, a low shot, or a first person view, a POV view, or just a slow camera movement across the hallway, just to give an eerie feeling. And yeah, so we'll be experimenting camera movements and angles outside and inside. That is what we are going to do. The first ever thing I'd say is we have to add a camera. I mean, cameras are very important, and it's incredibly important to add the camera. So what I will do is I will go to create. I will go to so that's add. I'll go to cinematic. No, not cinematic. Is it cinematic? Alright, so I will go into cinematic, then I will go into camera, assign camera actor over here. There we go. So that is where it is, and that is a big camera. That is a very big camera. That is why I'm going to decrease the size of this camera just to about a viable size. I'd say that's a more handheld size, if I may. I'd say that's a little bit more of a handheld size. Yeah, that's a bit more. That's a bit better. So as you can see, I can tweak the perspective, and instead I will put it into the camera sign actor, and there we go. I am now in the vision of my camera. So it's a very close-up shot. So what we can do is we can edit using using here basically. So the focal length, it's normally 35, but we can always adjust that. So I'm going to remain it to 35, keep it at 35. The aperture, we're going to keep, so to 2.8. The crop settings, now the crop is quite important, okay? So the crop is interesting. So it's, obviously, that's, that is showing a little bit inspiration from movies like Zack Snyder's Justice League. Obviously, I'll put references in the dissertation for that. But that will be this is giving a little bit of reference to Zack Snyder's Justice League, how the director used a 4:3 ratio crop, like an aspect ratio, just to make it a bit more cinematic, or just the casual 16:9. 16:9 is very, very common in all cinema. It's what they use normally. Is what they use normally in every sort of cinematic shot. So we are going to put our obviously this is a very, very good aspect ratio as well. This is more for zoom in shots, you know, sort of. If normally what they do is they animate, so they animate the aspect ratio, so they make it so that it's 2.39, and then they kind of animate it back to 1.77 to 16:9. So that's, you know, an example of it. Now what we are going to do is we are going to I feel that we need to decrease the focal length, just because it looks way too zoomed in my opinion. So as shown here, the focal length is very zoomed in, like it's making it look very zoomed in. Look, but we're all the way over here, and obviously it's capturing, if you look at the bottom right over here, it's only capturing that area. So I am going to decrease the focal length, I'd say to either 20 or 25, probably 25. 25 I think is a more mature you know, focal length to use. I feel like, so every cinematographer, every director has to focus on an object when filming something, and you can film on any of these objects over here, but because it's a horror sequence, because there's a horror sequence full of suspense, what I will do is I'll do something very good. So I will do, let's say if you wanted to do a little a starting scene. So I'm going to go into sign camera angle, into camera, and I'm going to move it around. So obviously you can see it's quite blurry. Is there any way I can focus a little bit? No, that's a bit too much. So the normal focal length would be 35, but that's a bit zoomed in, that is. I mean, that's my opinion, it's a bit zoomed in. Ah, got it, I've got it. It's the aperture. So I'm going to put it back to 20 or 25, that is, and I'm going to increase the aperture. There we go, that is the max aperture, and then you can obviously see, actually, if I decrease the aperture a little bit, I think that makes it look a little bit more cinematic though, doesn't it? So this is an example of a good kind of cinematic shot. So I will just do a slow kind of, there we go. So look what I'm doing here. So I'm doing a slow kind of straight movement. Now this could be the start suspense scene of the shot. It still kind of suspensefully shows the horror, but obviously it kind of shows the cool horror kind of the suspense, not horror, but it increases suspense, which I like. So that could be the first kind of little section of the experiment on how to use camera movements and angles. Then there's the iconic there's Dutch angles as well, but obviously this is me focusing on a static object. So now I will be experimenting on what it is to use cinematography on a live in a organic and a lifelike object, which I will do in a minute. Alright guys, so I have added a creature from Fab, obviously, and it kind of matches the environment a little bit. Obviously the Japanese ancient Japanese arts obviously defined that there would be like demons, oni demons, all of these stuff, and then they would make masks of them and of these creatures, Japanese mythology. So yeah, and this kind of resembles what a demon could kind of look like. So this is what I've done. Obviously it's not shown in the light very well, but as soon as the lightning strikes, you could obviously see the face. You will be able to see the face when the lightning strikes, but that's when the cinematics start to happen, obviously. There we go, look at that. So what I am going to do is, like I was saying, cinematography needs to have like an object to focus on. So what I will be doing is focusing on this object. So obviously there's a cool close-up thing that we can do. Now when doing close-ups, we have to think about the lighting, we have to think about so every time we decide whether what angles, what movements to do, we need to decide how the lighting is going to work for this shot. So now what we're going to do then is, if we're doing a close-up of the monster, what we're going to have to do is, I propose that, and if we go into stop piloting, so obviously you can see that massive camera. Ignore the massive camera, I've already turned it down all the way a lot, so yeah, ignore that massive camera. So I'd say the best thing to do is we scan around for the light sources that obviously that is around the monster. So we've got the red light at the back, obviously we've got the lamp on the right, and then obviously we've got the weather, obviously from the sky. So what we can do in that case is we can get some point lights in. So to do this, I'm going to go into lights, and I'm going to go into spotlights. That's what I'm going to do. Actually, not spotlights. I am going to do rect lights. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to come here, I am going to, see, look how horrifying that looks. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to turn that. So it's like a mix of, a little bit of mix of like look dev. So it's like using a little bit of look dev to enhance a camera, like if you get what I mean. So obviously the light source would be coming from this way, but I'm going to enhance the lighting for the shot, so this is why I'm going to make it seem smaller. Then I'm going to decrease the intensity, and then if we select our camera sign actor, we can see a little bit of the light coming from the, look at that. So from that shot we can now see a little bit of the light coming from the rect light that we had just created. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to still decrease the intensity. I'm going to do 0.2, which I think is a good idea. if I'm not mistaken. I think it's a very good idea. 0.2 is pretty good, but then I would change it to. I would change it a bit more better. I'd make it a bit more better. So I would do 0.1, because obviously there's a bit of distance coming from the, from the monster and the light source. This beautiful Japanese lamp. So I'm going to turn down 0.01. Oh, that's a little bit better, because you can see a little bit coming from the lamp. So because I'll give you a little demonstration. I will. So yeah, you can see like a little bit of the light hitting on the monster over there. Obviously, I'm going to show you how it looks like without the camera, and this is what it looks like without the camera. There is absolutely no light, but when we add that, it looks so much more cinematic and better. If we add the light, there we go. See, look at that. It looks so much more better. We can see a little bit there. I think the only thing I would do is I would increase that over here. Actually, I think it's a bit too much. I do it to about 0.02. That's what I do. So no, 0.02. Yeah, 0.02. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more better, because obviously the light's still hitting. So that's what I will do. So there we go. Look at that. The light is flashing. The light is hitting on the monster's face. So that is the start. Now, obviously, we see that there's light coming from behind. That being behind the monster's, head. Now, obviously, you can see that light is already showing, is already hitting that area anyway. So I don't think there's anything to worry about in terms of that. But the only thing I'd say we need to worry about is matching this to this. So now what we need to do is we need to put the light function flickering into this. So that is precisely what I'm going to do. So flickering. There we go. And the other thing I'm going to do is I am going to change the color. Now the color is very important. We have to match the color by steps. So what I will do is I will get no, I'm sure I can get that. There we go, the hex. So I will copy the hex from here, and I will put it into here. Now I'll just go in light. I just go in here and copy that. Boom, boom. There we go. And the hex should be. Ah, right. Yes. The only thing I'd say is I would increase the light. Make it a bit more better. There we go. That's so much better. That is splendid. So now, if we go into here, there we go. Look at that. That is so much better. So that is like pure cinematography I've done. So I've messed up with the lighting. I've messed around with the lighting. I've chosen a cinematic angle, a shot. So that's a close up of the creature, and I am now going to, and the creature as obviously my main source, my main object. I am going to now do a little camera movement to show you how it could work, if that makes sense. I'd say this light needs to be a little bit more brighter. I'd say about 0.05 will do, only because we want to see a bit more of the face. There we go, like a bit more of the face will do perfectly, honestly. So yeah, that's much better. That is much better. But I also want to increase the amount of red. So what I'm now going to do is, I know that I said this didn't matter, but I'm going to actually duplicate this. There we go. I know. It's a little error. Does it still show on the camera? does precisely. It precisely does show. I will come over here, and from behind, that is where I'll put the light. And from behind the head, that is where I'm going to put the light. And obviously the light is coming this direction like that. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to decrease the amount of light coming. I am going to make it so that it hits only this area. Then what I'm going to do is I am going to turn the match the hexadecimal from this light, which is over here. I am going to put it to, I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste into this hex. There we go. And then as you can see, it should show a bit more in the camera. I think what I'll do then is I will, it's not showing much on the camera, but don't worry, because what I will now do is, and it makes sense because if I heighten up if I heighten that up a little bit, it won't make sense in terms of transmission, you know. But I will heighten it up a little bit for you guys, just so that you can see it. I'm actually going to, if I rotate the camera, so if I go into sine camera actor's perspective, yeah, and I rotate it a little bit, there we go, look at that. Now that's so much better. That is so much better. That is very, very well done. So there's obviously two ways I could do this. It's this side way of doing it, or it's the up and down, which admittedly I do not know how to do the up and down method using freehand. Ah, there we go, look at that. So there, so just hold the middle mouse and literally just, there we go. So that should give a good kind of example. I've just scrolled up a bit too much there. So I'm going to actually decrease this to, there we go, that is so much better. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start there, I'm going to start there, and I'm going to just move. See, there we go, that adds a little bit of fear factor, a little bit of suspense in the shot. Obviously there's different kinds of close-ups, so I'm going to do that version. And then I'm going to do, my second version will be doing the up and down method. I'll start off from here, so it's kind of like freaky, and then you just increase, you just lift it up a little bit, and then obviously you'll get to a point where you can see the face, and then there we go. And then there, so that is cool close-up shots. The other sort of close-up shots that you can do is, if I increase the camera, you can do a rotational shot. So literally all you do is, I'm doing this all freehand, so literally all you do is literally just move right and rotate around the subject. That is a sort of close-up shots you can do. A lot of close-up shots were done in certain movies, action movies, dark superhero movies, for example, A Man in a Bat Suit, if you have watched a certain movie that I am referencing. And yeah, so that is close-up shots. The other thing we can do is distance shots, low shots. So obviously this would be the point of view shots from the victim before a killer, obviously the killer kills the victim. Obviously there's a lot of POV shots on the victim, so this is what we'll be doing. There we go, that's the ground right there. So obviously just imagine the victim, you're the victim laying down, and the monster's looking at you. It will literally just be a zoom in shot like that, a very close zoom in shot like that, that would be a good POV shot. The victim laying on the floor, very cinematic, incredibly fear factor like POV shot. Slow camera movements, and film grain is enhanced if I look correctly. Yes, it is very enhanced. However, I am a bit concerned about the areas in which the rain isn't hitting. So for example, it's hitting in this part, but not over here. But that's fine. What we can do is we can do a little bit of a side shot over here. Let's see if the killer's coming out. Obviously the rain makes it a bit more horrifying. Actually, I'll hide this and I'll hide that. Obviously the rain makes it a bit more horrifying. A POV shot of the victim again. Obviously the rain intensifies it, which is very, very good. And another POV shot from a left angle. If the killer enters the area, you can see that. Many games have this kind of feature, particularly one game where you are being chased by killers, and they obviously hook you onto metal hooks and all that stuff. If you get the reference, obviously you'll get it. Now, the second stage of the video, I'm going to go inside and I'm going to move this asset into the hallway over there, and I am going to make it look very horrifying. Alright guys, so this is the hallway that I created earlier, before obviously the video. Now obviously the camera's really going through that, but don't worry about that, it's a massive camera. Now I've added these lights just for a bit of suspense, because I just feel like it's, you know, it's great to add. So I'm, obviously to make a scene more realistic, we will be, you know, tweaking these cameras, to make it a bit more, you know, to make it grey, if that makes sense. Obviously I've moved the creature in the back of the hallway. Now the reason why I've moved it over here is because one of the phobias that I've researched on, experimented with, is nyctophobia, which is the fear of the dark, and obviously another phobia is the fear of the unknown, which adds on to that. And the reason I've done this is because when looking into the darkness, it's like the fear of the unknown. It's nyctophobia. It's like you know, you don't know what's going to go on in the darkness. When a human eye, the human eye has the power of seeing things using light sources, but when the human eye's power gets taken away, naturally a human begins to fear something that they can't see. So what I've done is I have moved the creature into the shadowy part so that you can see a silhouette of something, you know, quite horrifying. I've also, where the area is, I've also dedicated a bit of time with making it a bit more claustrophobic. That is done by the camera. Basically the camera is very zoomed in, so the camera is very zoomed in and the position of the camera is quite low, which means when you feel quite short, everything seems to be quite claustrophobic, like everything's pulling you inwards. So that is also upscaling the amount of, you know, fear factor in this shot. So if I go back to our camera actor, as you can see, it's quite, at the moment it's quite, you know, there's a bit of tweaking to do. So let's say a human height is about here, and you would be looking at down the hallway like that. Hallway shots are very, very, not complex, but quite simplistic actually. Hallway shots are basically a human eye level human. So that's a cameraman in standing up normally with the camera. Eye level shots, but however the settings in the camera, so the environment is enlarged so that it can make it seem a bit claustrophobic, a bit small, a bit, you know, scared, to add fear factor. And then obviously with these lights, I've flickered them all at the same time, which needs a bit of work. So what I'll do now in this section of the video is what I'll do now is I will edit it to make it seem quite, you know, a little bit better, and then I'll put it into different stages. So so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the camera where it is, because the camera positioning is perfect. The only thing I would do is first of all, I'm going to remove some lights, because logically some lights don't work all the time. So it's good to have a little bit of differentiation. So even this first light, I'd say, like, if I remove this, like, I just feel like that is more horrifying, you know, like just having fewer lights, like that's just, it just makes everything, beautifully horrifying, you know. So there we go, look, you're in the darkness, there's only 2 lights working, 2 lamps working, and then you see that. So if we look at that through the camera, we can see obviously that it's made the shot so much better. Obviously the darkness is enhancing the cinematography in the shot, and obviously you can still see the silhouette of the creature in the fog, which is brilliant. The fog is also enhancing it as well, which is incredible. And the lights, the red lights, yeah, it gives it a little bit of a dim light source, which is brilliant. So so now my next step is I'm going to make the hallway seem a little bit more realistic. So logically, not all lamps are red. I've added a lot of red lights into this world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these lights, and I'm going to turn them into natural yellow lights, because we're going to see the difference between red lighting in there and then yellow lighting. So, but first, before we do that, I am going to bring the creature, a bit more forward, so that when we see the creature, so logically, we can see the creature when, there we go, and then if we change the idols, so instead of running this, it's actually idle 1. Then look at that, it just looks way better. Look at that, it looks way better. So yeah, that's another thing that I kind of like. I can bring the creature forward and it just looks amazing, you know, it looks brilliant. So I'm going to push the creature back now, back to where it was. Obviously you can still see that silhouette, that horrifying silhouette, but because of the red lighting you can see a little bit that the face is showing, which is brilliant. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change his lighting, and I'm going to make it a little bit more modern. So that's what I'm going to do, like not modern but natural. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to first of all add, I'm actually going to copy the hexadecimal that I made for this one, which is over here. So this is the hexadecimal over here, and I'm going to paste it into here. Perfecto. Right, so now, as you can see, it's a bit more natural lighting now. The lighting is very, very well. All I'd say is just to make the lighting be a bit more orangey, I'd say, just because it's more fiery as well. We have to remember that it's, you know, it's candles, you know, it's candle operated, you know, it's lanterns. So technically, it's very important that we add, you know, accurate lighting into our shot. That just looks way more realistic in terms of the shot, because obviously natural lighting is now being used. So yeah, it looks way more realistic. So yeah, that's that, and that's it. So now if we just hide these so that you can see, obviously darkness, complete darkness. The fog is the only thing that's actually giving it a little bit of light, but then we add a little bit of light over here, which is brilliant. You can see. I really wish there was some way to hide these, to be fair. The other thing we can do is, if we do a very slow movement, we can do a quick, a very, very slow movement in the forwards. As you can see, I'm doing a very slow movement. That increases suspense in the scene, something that's going to show any minute. Something that's going to show, like a jump scare, scene before a jump scare. Basically what it is. Slow movements towards the object, very slow, and then stop. See? That is literally it. And so that's it. And so the other things that could improve the cinematography could be the height. So we can decrease height, which means that instead of let's say a POV of a person, it would be like, instead of like a POV of the cameraman, it would be a POV of a victim, like we did outside in the exterior. So now what we can do is we can, boom, there we go. So that would be like the POV of like a laying down victim, which would be brilliant. But other than that, I think that is the end of Practical 2, using lighting and cinematography, different camera angles to enhance a shot. And yeah, so thank you so much guys for watching, and I will see you on Practical 3, Experiment 3. I'll be getting all your responses, and I will be that I've sent through a questionnaire, and I will be choosing the best phobia and implementing it into a project. So that's what I'll be doing. So in that case, I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.